QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Memorize Report Group Setup, or in other words, Setup Memorize Report Group. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file. We currently have our open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the View dropdown, selecting the Open Windows list. We're going to discuss the process of memorizing reports, which can save us time in the future from customizing reports over and over again. Our focus here, not so much on the actual memorization process, but on where are we going to place those reports, how are we going to group those reports. But before we get there, let's take a quick look at the memorization process, and then we'll talk more about actually memorizing the report in a future presentation. So if I go to the reports dropdown, for example, I'm going to go to the you could find this report in company and financial and then balance sheet, but instead I'm going to go right down here to the report center. We're going to be using the balance sheet to just take a look at, but obviously you can make changes and do a similar thing to any type of report. In essence, we're going to make this large, maximizing the screen. I'm in the standard reports. I'm going to just scroll down in this view this time, and I'm just going to go down to the balance sheet reports. So we're going to go down to after the P&L, all the P&L reports. Here's the balance sheet reports. I want to take a look at the that's not, it took me back to the top there, didn't it? Hold on a second. So we want to be on the balance sheet reports and then run the standard balance sheet report. I'm going to run the standard balance sheet for the time period 12/31/21. And let's say we made a change to the balance sheet in some ways, customizing the report. Let's say we went to the fonts and numbers, and I wanted to say that we want the company name to be super big. I'm going to make it as big as possible, 48. And then we want it to be red and then like underlined so they don't miss our name. And then I'm going to say no and then say okay. So now we want that. If I wanted to save that, so I don't recommend actually doing that to a report, but if you wanted to save that so you didn't have to do it again, you can memorize the report. So I'm going to memorize the report, but to memorize it, it's got to be placed somewhere, or would be nice for it to place somewhere for you. So you may want to change the name of the memorized report. So you'd call it memorized report with like giant red company name. And then you're going to save it somewhere. Save in the memorized reports. This is the categories that are currently set up, but you might want to adjust these categories for memorization. You also have this share this report template with others so that you can share the template with others. That would be applicable if you're using QuickBooks with multiple users that are using the QuickBooks system, and you want to share basically your template. So I'm going to close this back out. Now we want to focus in on where we're going to put the report. So how can we organize where we're going to put it? And then next time we'll actually put it there and then save the report. So I'm going to go back to the report center in the open windows, which of course you can also find by going to the drop down in reports and report center. We're currently on the standard tab. That's the default. Now I want to go to the memorized tab. We want to be in the memorized reports. And this will give us, of course, our memorized reports. Now, when I go back into this section, it's going to go to the last tab you were in. And oftentimes I forget that I changed it to the memorized reports, and then I need to go back to the standard, which is where I want to go most of the time. So just keep that in mind. It's going to go to where you last were. We have the standard. These are the memorized categories on the left-hand side. So they've already kind of categorized these reports, and they've put some memorized reports in place already, including a balance sheet 1, and so on and so forth. These might be useful reports for you, so you can go through and check them out, but they aren't reports that you basically made and customized to be memorized. If they're useful reports to be standard reports, they should already be in the standard reports over here. So you may want to kind of clean this thing out and just put your own stuff in it. So the way to do that is you're going to go to the Edit Memorize List, and it gives you this list of your memorized reports. So the categories they gave us, they got the categories account, banking, company, customer, employees, and vendors, and then you got some standard reports within those categorizations. So you may want to just adjust this whole thing. You may want to just pretty much clean this thing out and put your own memorized reports if you want, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that at the start, then you can go down here and at least add another section for you, which would go to memorized reports. I want to make a new group first, so I can have a new group to put our information. So I'm going to group it by name. Now this is one way you might want to do it. If you're sharing a company file with multiple people, you might group it by name, or you can group it by functionality of the report. You might have reports that are going to be used for basically the end of the month financial reporting type of reports that maybe you want to group into one location. Those are the group of reports that you would then put together, that you would provide to the client or whatnot at a periodic basis, so they can all be kind of in one place, like a balance sheet and an income statement that are all customized in one place and so on. So now that I have that particular section, if I go back to the balance sheet and were to memorize this report, I won't actually do it, but if I was going to memorize it, then I'm going to say memorize, and then if we go there, there's our categorization. It'll be right there, and we can save it under a particular category. Going back to memorize reports in the open windows, notice it's sorted by alphabetical order. So if your name is different here, then it's going to be by alphabetical order. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these categories, and then and so we can clean this thing out and then do your own reporting or your own customization. So to delete, you can go on this top item and say, I want to delete the memorized report. You cannot delete the item has sub-items. It has sub-items in it. So I'm going to delete item by item. I'm going to right-click and delete the report and say, OK. I'm going to right-click and delete. OK. I'm going to right-click and delete. And then I'm going to say, OK. I'll do this for the first section. I'm going to do it basically for the whole thing here. So we have to completely customize our own section. I'm going to delete the report and delete the report and delete the report and delete the report and delete the report, delete the report, and then I'm going to actually delete the category and delete the report, and I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to continue that process, leaving us only with the name. So now we just have the one category here, basically cleaned this thing out so it won't be all muddied up. And then you might have other categories. Some categories you might have, we might have reports. I might have a new group. I might call it client year end reports. And I might have some customized set of reports that I would put into that for display purposes. I might have then month-end reports that might be slightly different. So I might say that I want a new group, and I might say these are client month-end reports. And so I might have a group of reports that would be into the month-end reports that I might standardize and have a different, alignment of reports that would fit in there. So I can kind of standardize the ones that were going to be printed and how they will look. And then I might have something that might be different for a new group. I might call it internal reports. And those might be reports that I'm going to use internally. I might format them different so that when I go look at them for my internal purposes as I do data input, I want them to look differently for my purposes than when I display them and I show them to the clients. I'm going to have different formatting for those two things quite possibly. And then you might have like payroll reports. I might say a new group and say I need the payroll reports, and we might have different groups between payroll reports for quarterly payroll reports that we're going to customize here versus yearly type of payroll reports. So there's some grouping of the reports. Now, of course, if I go back to the balance sheet and I was to look at our memorized reports and say I want to memorize this thing and I want to save it to a particular group, now we've got these different groups that we can be saving to, and these customized groups that have more meaning to us. And again, this can be really nice that you can kind of customize what you expect to give to either your supervisor or to your client on a period end basis, usually as you do the work, or you could say after you do the data input. If you do it like on a monthly basis or a daily basis, you can have a grouping of the reports that are pre-formatted for you, and then you can standardize that formatting of the report. And if you standardize the formatting of the report in this way, you can possibly pass on the work to somebody else more easily that way too, because the reports that they need for a particular time period will be then standardized, formatted already into these groups.